CJ Stroud is possibly one of the smelliest, streakiest NFL postseasons of all time. Justin Herbert, in my mind, is like he's like the boys meme of the guy where he's like smiling in the theater or whatever. I've not seen the boys, but I've only seen the meme. Basically, being like, "Wait, I've done this, but like I'm in the clear."
Yeah.
Because CJ Stroud, first NFL postseason history.
That's big.
5 fumbles, 5 interceptions.
It's huge for the Chargers.
Historic stuff from CJ Stroud. I know he didn't have Nico Collins in this game. Doesn't matter. You can't do this. Your defense plays really well, but it doesn't matter because you turn the ball, you throw 4 picks, one of them being a pick 6, and the Patriots win 28-16. Very disappointing because it truly felt like this Texas defense was good enough to at least go to the Super Bowl, and that CJ Stroud had cracked the code down the stretch of being like, okay, I don't have to be great, but I just have to do just enough to, protect the football, find my weapons a couple times. We'll let Woody Marks butt his head against the post 20 times a game, 15 times a game for 50 yards. And that all went away. He couldn't protect the football, and that's kind of the real reason they're going home. But y'all's thoughts on this game, though?
Yeah, it did. Stroud definitely failed the defense, and they definitely failed the defense. New England had one drive longer than 6 plays in this game.
That's insane.
10 plays and a punt.
It wasn't even a scoring drive.
Yeah, they had 4 drives, I should say, 3 drives that were 6 plays, meaning they picked up 1 to 2 first downs. They were absolutely dominant for much of this game and much of this season. I think the biggest question people had was like, oh, why aren't you putting in Davis Mills? Should we have benched CJ Stroud? Stroud throws the 4 picks. He throws them all 4 in the first half. For me, the argument for benching him was really hard because I think of specifically a couple things. One, even with the way Davis Mills played this year, I did think that Stroud deserved the chance to start the second half. And then I think of, what was one quarterback that threw 4 picks in the first half and then responded and answered pretty well? Oh, yeah, Trevor Lawrence against Justin Herbert, where he threw 3 picks in the first quarter and was able to respond from that game. He returned to form. He wins that game. And that was in a much tougher circumstance because he's down 27-0 because of those 4 picks. So a much different score, much more manageable of a spot to be in. Houston is only trailing by 11 points going to halftime. And so Stroud deserved to start at least the second half. And then he leads a drive down the field. It unfortunately stalls out in a field goal. It's an 8-point game. Okay, he deserves the next drive. Drake May immediately fumbles. They have the ball in great territory. Woody Marks fumbles, sadly, and they don't score any points. They force a 3-and-out. And so Stroud, with how he had already played the first 2 drives of the second half, he deserves the third drive. He leads him down for a field goal, and it's a 5-point game. I get he was terrible in the first half, but you give him the opportunity to start the second half, and he responded in the second half with the way he played. He played much better, albeit a very low bar to overcome in the second half than he did in the first half. So I don't think benching him really would have been – I didn't think it was much of a decision at any point for DeMeco Ryans and crew. I get it. Davis Mills was good this year. He was 3-0 in games that he started. Sure. One of those wins was against Buffalo, and a win where they turned over Josh Allen 3 times in that game and were dominant defensively all night. Another one of those wins was against Trevor Lawrence, and it was a shocking, loss for Jacksonville. It wasn't that Davis Mills.
Yeah, it was a collapse by Jacksonville.
Yeah, Davis Mills didn't necessarily tear them apart. So I did think Stroud deserved to start the second half. I didn't think he deserved to be benched. I also don't think, his career is over. I think for the Texans this year, you think of the loss of Joe Mixon for the entire season. He didn't play a single snap. He was a dominant rusher last year. The trading of Laramie Tunsil, CJ Stroud did not do that. It reared their heads, and it finally resulted in a loss. They had won 11 in a row coming into this game. Their running game, again, was terrible. 18 carries for 31 yards from their running backs. They could not run the ball for much of the entire year. And to think of, if I am thought of on the show as the most logical thinker when it comes to thinking about trying to put things in perspective, and to think of the last 3 years for Houston where a rookie year CJ cooks, he wins the playoff game, they lose to the Ravens, the number 1 seed on the road. Then they go all out. They add weapons for him. They give him Stephon Diggs. They get him Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
It ends in a playoff win against Joe Flacco and then a playoff loss against the number 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs, who go to the Super Bowl. And then the weapons are gone this year. Diggs is gone. Mixon doesn't play a single snap. Laramie Tunsil is traded away. You have injuries to Nico Collins throughout the year. Tank Dell broke his leg last year. Doesn't play a single snap this year. C. Kirk is your best receiver in 2 playoff games. And the defense carries them all season. Stroud really struggled a ton this year. But honestly, who wouldn't have with what he had offensively? They had just fired their offensive coordinator at the end or middle of last year.
Yeah.
And he had, led them to a great offense his rookie year. And now Stroud, he has to say in a presser that he doesn't think that his career, and he speaks in the third person of, I don't think CJ Stroud's career is over yet. I don't think there's any need to panic. I do think people are panicking a little bit, and that Stroud maybe isn't the answer. Maybe, he shouldn't have talked so much so early, or making fun of his warm-up routine, the fact that he uses a basketball and a baseball bat and whatnot. And then we're making fun of last year when he beat Caleb Williams on Sunday Night Football, he's going up and talking to Caleb and saying, hey, fix these things. You'll be back in the spot that I'm in right now. And their careers have just gone a different trajectory since then. I just don't think there's any need to panic, because who would give up on a quarterback that made the postseason and won a playoff game every single year in his first 3 years? I don't care what you want to say, how those results happened. He and Josh Allen are the only quarterbacks in the league right now to have a streak of such nature. If Mahomes didn't get hurt, he would be the only other one as well. So I don't think Stroud's career is over. I think the book is still to be written on him. He has 6 playoff starts already, so he's got a ton of playoff experience. And we aren't even into the spot of, we are going to decide this offseason now whether or not to pick up his 5th-year option.
Yeah.
We hadn't even gotten that far. He's already started 6 playoff games. So I get it. He was terrible in this game and in the Steelers game, but I don't think it's who wouldn't be bad in those scenarios with those weapons.
He had the worst. Yeah, I think he had the worst supporting cast in the playoffs, pretty easily. And if you were expecting him to cook in this game, I think you were asking him to do something that he's just simply not. I agree with acting like CJ Stroud's not going to start next year, which I received a text from my brother-in-law, Grant, that someone basically told him that D'Amico Ryan's going to get fired and CJ Stroud was going to be the starter next year. This guy was a Cowboys fan, Jersey Mike's employee, so shocker that he's going to say that, right? But at the same time, I definitely think the expectations maybe got a little too high for CJ Stroud after his rookie year. And so now we've come down to this point of which is with given how good the defense is, it's all they need of can we just get this guy a solid run game and have his weapons stay healthy, and then let him go from there? Because realistically, who he had, like I just said, we shouldn't have expected great things in this game. Is that an excuse to throw 4 picks? No, not at all. Especially some of the picks were just awful. But he just wasn't dealt a winning hand, right? So I agree. It's insane to be his book in the NFL, the final chapter was just written with that game. It's crazy talk.
And he is getting tarnished a ton because they have a great defense, but Drake May shouldn't, be void of criticism for the turnovers that he had in this game.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams is not going to be void of the turnovers that he had. Of course, Josh Allen is not going to be voided of the turnovers that he had, and it feels like a ton of it is being put on CJ. But that again, I also want to reiterate what you said, and that it doesn't excuse the turnovers that he had in the first half or in the Steelers game whatsoever.
I'm just going to read what Crummy said in the chat because I think it puts it really well. I'm not expecting him to go win me a game like I am Josh Allen. I am expecting him to not randomly launch the ball in the air like on the pick six. I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's a fair request.
Yeah, pivoting to the Patriots side, it's really interesting, right? Because now they've put together back-to-back really good defensive performances, and they're about to go play the Bo Nixless Broncos team. There's a chance that they end up in the Super Bowl, and it's like we don't really know if their defense has actually played fantastic or if it's the fact you played serial playoff choker Justin Herbert, deer in headlights CJ Stroud, and then Jarrett Stidham on your route to the Super Bowl. At some point you're shutting down an NFL offense. You still deserve some credit, but we won't really know if that's actual domination or if they just kind of faced a very stoppable force week in and week out in the playoffs, which is very Patriots of them.
Yeah, to speak to that, they've given up just 10.5 points per game, 9.5 points per game in the two games. Of course, 6 turnovers forced in the two games. This is something that they struggled in a ton this year. And another thing they struggled in was I think it was bottom 3 in terms of allowing touchdowns in the red zone. You think to the Chargers game, Chargers have 2 drives, first and goal from the 10 and first and 10 from the 11. They score 3 points on those 2 drives. And the same thing goes for Houston in this game. They get down there and they're forced to kick field goals. They're forced to – it's the bend, don't break, even in spots where they were bending. And so a ton of credit to them in the way that they've shown up defensively. Drake May, of course, has not played even remotely close to what he played in the MVP caliber year that he had, and yet they've won 2 playoff games. That could go 2 ways in terms of, it means he's going to cook at some point, but he could play Denver and Seattle the next 2 rounds and have 2 equally bad games or worse games than he's had in the other 2. So I wouldn't. Some Patriot fans are using that, my brother specifically, and as an argument towards New England going forward. But they've done, at least to some degree, what they weren't expected to do. And so I do push back on the people that say, fraud run, they haven't been tested. Well, as bad as Justin Herbert has been in the 2 playoff games prior, they also held Justin Herbert to 3 points.
3 points is impressive no matter who you're facing.
Absolutely. And as bad as Stroud was last week and as bad as he was in this game, they held that offense to 16 points. They forced those turnovers. They had so many moments where, the first stat I read for this game, they had 1 drive longer than 6 plays, meaning that their defense kept being forced out there and put in critical moments, and they were able to answer in critical moments and force field goals. I do think there is a ton to be said that this defense has played really, really well. Milton Williams has been worth every penny that they paid him in a contract that people thought was terrible. Christian Gonzalez and his return with Carlton Davis, who's had an up-and-down career. They got some weapons defensively and some weapons offensively that haven't shown really even yet. So this is a team they deserve to be in the AFC Championship game.
100%.
They have been one of the best teams all year. It's funny to think this playoffs was going to be so open. It really could be anyone's game. But in reality, in the AFC, it's been the 2 best teams this year from a record perspective all year. And in the NFC, it's been the 2 best teams the entire year. And they are both in the championship games in both sides. So it really is the best 4 teams available. We felt that coming into the division round. It was already the best 8 teams available. So I don't think you should, not saying you, but the public should say, fraud Patriots. It's a talking point. If they beat Jarrett Stidham and then they play Sam Darnold in the Super Bowl and he throws 5 picks or something, it's certainly a talking point. But every championship run is hard, and you're going to need lucky breaks. You're going to need things to go your way. You're going to need to play an opponent who's hurt. You're going to need an opponent to make a stupid mistake. And so every championship run should be viewed in a great light, and not necessarily a full-on fraud light should pop on for those. So I'm excited to watch New England this coming Sunday, AFC Championship game in Denver. They opened as 6.5-point favorites. It got bet up to 7.5. It's now down to 5.5. I have seen it even at 4.5.
It's just all over the place.
It is all over the place, and they are going to be road favorites in the AFC Championship game in Drake May's second year, and how quickly it has become of maybe May is going to take some of the mantle and quickly join that elite class of AFC quarterbacks. Even with how bad he's been in the postseason, he was great in the regular season. Now he'll have potentially a Super Bowl appearance on his resume before Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson,
Which would be insane. That just nuts.